Hi, everybody. It is your girl, Jennifer, and welcome to Unscripted 2.0. And today I have an exciting guest joining me. Her name is Alicia Cook. She's an award winning author and poet. Alicia has an amazing gift for putting words into raw human experiences, particularly around the topics of mental health, addiction, and grief. Her work isn't just about sharing stories, it's about creating deep connections and also fostering a profound community for her readers. And when she isn't writing, she's an activist in the battle against opiate addiction. And that's just the condensed version. I mean, there's so many other things that you do. So I'm so excited to have you on. Yeah, so welcome.
Hi, happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. And I know that, and I always kind of reference like with my guests, like, oh, we always have these conversations. And I know you and I spoke, and I know you get interviewed all the time because of all the work that you do. And I know for me, I wanted this to be a conversation to be as natural as possible because I think that you and I are doing this work every day. So I think it could be like I don't want to say a fun conversation, but a very informative conversation because it does surround some significant topics that are considered serious. And one of the reasons why I had you on was because, um, when we met, and I'll let you talk a little bit about that, um, we both dealt with certain tragedies in our own lives, and we started to create as a result of it, which helped us through that process. Um, and it led us to kinda syncing up maybe 15 years later, I don't know, 10 or 15 years later. But why don't you share a little bit about how we connected and or how we reconnected? Because I thought it was, like, so awesome.
Yeah, well, for one, I felt bad because when we just reconnected last month, which I guess was what May. Um,
Wow.
yeah, you the first thing you said was, "I think I met you 10 years ago." And I was like, "I am sorry." But then once we connected the dots, I was able to even go back into, like, my camera roll and find a group photo where you and I were in the same photo. But I was brought into your previous, employer to speak
Yeah.
about addiction and how it impacts families, and I was, like, the keynote speaker at that event, and we were able to meet then, and then I believe that was, like, in 2017, 2018. And then, whole global pandemic, you change careers ish, and we end up I'm now a guest speaker at the high school in which you are employed.
And it was crazy because it just I feel like that whole month was full circle. You and another person from my past kind of happened to come in as a speaker, and it just feels like no matter what you do in this world of mental health and wellness, you kinda circle back to people and you see people continuing, whether it's their own careers and their journeys. So I was just so excited because I remember hearing you speak, and then kinda after we saw each other, I went to just look up all of your accomplishments. I mean, from that time alone to now, you've done so much work. I mean, and it was just so impressive, and I just felt like I need to have you on because I think that this conversation is important. So, I think for me, one of the things I really have a question about is how did you, get to this direction where you were able to, use your art form as a way to maybe allow people the ability to have a voice to kind of describe what they were feeling. Like, how did you get to that point or make that connection?
Yeah, well, it started selfishly at first. I was not thinking about maybe what I'm going to do is going to empower others to do the same or whatever. I was not thinking about that at all. I was thinking about I had this loss due to addiction in my family. And then from that point on in 2006, when my cousin Jess died, living in New Jersey specifically, I was crossing paths quite a bit with other people in active addiction, friends of friends. And I was watching this happen over and over and over again, where if they didn't recover, they died. And there was this hole in these families. And it was very specific to like losing someone to addiction is not the same as losing someone any other way, nor should it be. And it's not the same when you lose someone in a car accident. Loss is so unique, especially the way that people die. And I couldn't find anything at the time. I'm talking late 20, you know, early 2010s. I could not find anything. And about what I was going through. So I say it starts selfishly because I do tell this story a lot because this is usually the question I'm asked is I went home one day and I said to my mother, I'm going to write about this. Like, if it's okay with the family, someone needs to talk about this. And I don't mean, I'm not saying that conversation wasn't happening at all, but I knew I had the ability to bring it to a level of exposure that was not happening at the time. Like, I applaud the people that were talking in their communities and talking on their blogs and talking to one another of that was happening. I'm not saying that wasn't, but I knew I was like I could bring this to traditional media, and that's what I did. Now, writing about your own experience over and over and over and over again, one could become repetitive, but two, it's a drain. And I knew I wasn't the only one going through it. So I literally put out a call for submissions after I had established the Other Side of Addiction series. And I basically said, like, hey, if you want to share your story, I will interview you and I will get this published. It'll be featured in, I listed a few places that I knew would take it, and it will live on the HuffPost. And I had hundreds of submissions.
Wow.
And so that's how I incorporated other people's stories too, because I was so it was getting redundant, and I said, like, I have to share different different people coming from all walks of life to show that, like, this is a universal experience that we're unfortunately having.
No, so and I think that again, okay, so figuring out how to get this, how to get this, on the map and figuring out how to do something different that you weren't seeing is one thing. For me, my question to you, how did you know, like when it was when you were ready? Like, how did you know when you were ready for the world to know what your experience was? Because I think for me that was something really difficult because I felt, and again, as I did the work, I started to feel differently, but I felt a lot of shame attached to what happened with my mom. And so I was, and not, and shame in the sense of somebody would judge me because of what my family experience was. And so it took a long time for me to feel like, okay, I was ready. But when did you know, like, okay, I'm going to do this? Because I think sometimes people want to put things out there in the world and they're so afraid of like what people will say or do or how they'll operate. But how did you know? Like, when did you know it was time?
Well, I don't think you're ever ready. Like, if you wait to be ready, that's you're never gonna do it. For me, it was a nagging idea. Like, I couldn't shake the idea away that I could talk about addiction's impact on families on a
Yes.
major level. Like, it was keeping me up at night at some point. Now my cousin died in 2006. I did not publish that first article till 2013, maybe very early 2014. So I waited. I graduated college. I learned more of the craft. And even still, like, those earlier essays, I would love to, sometimes the writer in me wants to rewrite them now, but they were raw and they were real in the moment. So I, to the point of shame, when my cousin was alive in an active addiction, she was still very much in my life. And I saw the stigma and I saw how my friends didn't want to be around her. Um, the almost a secondhand embarrassment that I never felt for whatever reason in my youth when I was with my cousin. My good friends did not go to her wake or her funeral. My good, like, and we didn't even talk about it until 15 years later when they finally had some kind of loss and and I turned around and I said, well, like, and not to throw it in their face, and I know this could be misconstrued because it's a soundbite, but like, I said, you didn't come to my cousin's wake or funeral. Like, do you remember that? And because when they were like talking about how p- certain people in their life weren't showing up for them in their moment of grief. And I obviously did for them. And I did use that as an opportunity to remind them, like, you didn't show up how I thought you should have either. So maybe give that other person some kind of grace in this moment. Um,
Yeah.
because I gave them that to them. But like I felt that shame in real time. So writing about it was no different. And I also knew, I mean, I might be speaking from in hindsight now or from experience now. And I know you and I talked about this offline, but like anything you put out publicly is going to be critiqued in one way or another, especially if you reach the million view mark, you know? So I put that to the side as well because I just inherently knew that I'd be helping more people than I'd be pissing off. And like, I don't care if I'm pissing you off or if you're disagreeing with me, because if you
Yeah.
fundamentally don't agree that addiction is a disease, like, what are we doing here? Like, it's just white noise to me because I knew I was helping more people than I was pissing
Yeah.
off.
I mean, there's so many things I wanna comment on. Number 1, when I asked when I asked you when I said, like, "How did you know?" And you said it was, like, this unrelenting
Mhm,
idea, thought. Okay, so a lot of people that I have, uh, just had conversations with in my previous podcast have said the same thing, and what I'm learning is, really having lots of different conversations with creators and creatives, where they say that it is I kinda named it like this healthy intrusive thought where it just doesn't escape your mind, and if you're staying up at night, and everybody kinda has that same idea. "It's keeping me up. I can't get this out of my mind," and that is exactly what I felt when I want to share and just start creating this podcast. Like, I had this unrelenting just thought that it just wouldn't leave. It was like this annoying thing. The other
mhm,
thing is with grief, um, it's so interesting when you go through the experience, and when I went through my experience, um, for me, it showed me, uh it flushed out a lot of the people that were not meant to be there. Like, it showed me exactly who was there, and it was wild who showed up. Like, I was very surprised at the people that stayed in the ring with me, you know?
mhm.
And that was a very hard process of grief, you know?
Yep.
And I think that, and I also learned that people just don't know what to say and they don't know what to do. Sometimes, especially with our experiences, they were both very unnatural deaths. Okay. My mom was actually killed 5.5 years ago. And so that was a very unnatural, obvious experience that I mean, who can it's like your world turns upside down and inside out, and for the first time this year, I'm able to even say that, not cry, not flinch, but that was a really devastating thing for my whole family, the grandkids and everything, and for the people that decide to stay, I mean, they know who they are, I'll never forget it, but the people that decided to kinda move out of the way, it was like, I don't even know if I'd wanna even have that conversation if something happened with that. It's just wild how grief allows us to kinda navigate differently, and there's no right or wrong way.
No, there isn't, and, it's so, like, I the suddenness of it all too, like, I remember being upset that certain people weren't showing up for me, whatever that meant when I lost my 19-year-old cousin, right? That meant we were all 19 and 20 years old. So my mother right away was like, "You all are so young. It's not like, we're in well into adulthood and we know how to handle these things." So I immediately gave those friends who are still in my life a lot of grace and forgiveness. I mean, again, I didn't even bring it up to them until almost 20 years later. Because I met them where they were at and we were all immature teenagers still, very young adults. I don't know if I had a loss, regardless of how the person passed now, if I would give that same grace. And I know a few of
Interesting.
my friends right now going through some traumatic loss where they're like, "I think I'm just done with this person." And I'm like, "Fine, that's your choice." You know, handle it how you need to. Um, but I I just want to say too, you could cry about your mother the rest of your life. There's nothing wrong
I
with
know.
crying about the loss of your mother. Um, Tears are good. And then going back to our first point, the nagging feeling, Rick Rubin has a book called The Creative Act that every creative on earth should read, whether you like the man or not. Um, I think that he's a brilliant producer, but he also understands the creative mind. And he said that, like, as people, we have antennas on our head, and ideas come down almost, you know, as signals, and our antenna can either accept that signal and do something with it, or eventually that signal will fade away and land somewhere else. So I never think that my idea any of my ideas are my ideas. I think they hit me in that moment, and if I accept them and run with it, fine, but if I don't, someone else is going to have that same exact idea. Maybe they might execute it differently, but I believe that if I didn't act in that moment for the addiction writing, someone else would have, and someone else might be doing what I did all those years. Like, I don't think it was unique to me. I received the idea and I took it and I ran to it. Like, my antenna was like, "Yes." But eventually that signal, that nagging would have faded or been replaced with a
Yeah.
different idea, and it would have someone else would have, produced that outcome.
No, and I love that idea because I think that going to your point of just it just comes to you. I
Mhm.
agree because I think that for me, one of the purposes of doing these kinds of just having these conversations is the fact that I want people to understand that no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what your experiences, you know, you still have the right as a human to be able to live the best version of your life despite the experiences. You can have both. And there's something about that idea that I really, for the past couple of years, I've been really offering to the world is you can have both. You can feel, you like, as you said, you can cry. There's nothing wrong with that. And you don't have to cry. And I think for the first time, I'm able to do both and also recognize that I have a life that I want to live and no experience is going to take that from me because it's a choice right now for how I want to lead the way. But really showing up and showing people that no matter what it is, you can keep moving forward the best of your ability. But as far as creativity, I really, the books that the books that you had published specifically, the poetry, the mixtapes, I mean, all of that. And as I was going through it, I noticed that you also attached music to it, like the music that you were listening to in that moment. I don't know if that was you being inspired. I don't know. But I mean, I thought that it was just so like amazing how you were able to interface both. Like how did you come up with that? Because music and poetry, obviously, there's so much similarities to what it does to people that listen and enjoy both. But how did you come up with that format? I just thought it was awesome.
Yeah, so when I started thinking about wanting to publish a poetry book, I knew that it needed something else. The packaging of it needed to be unique and it needed to stand out, catch an eye. Like if someone was scrolling through an online shop or looking at the time, I was hoping my book would end up in a bookstore. Um, so I knew I had to package it in a way that was very different. I wanted it to feel almost immersive. I knew that a big part of my writing is also blackout poetry. I knew I wanted to find a way to incorporate both in a creative way that made sense. So around that time, I was posting poetry quite a bit, just willy nilly on Instagram. And my captions would always be a lyric to a song that connected to the poem. I did that in a way too to like bridge the gap between poetry and music. And so when I was putting together this idea for the concept of the book, it hit me like a ton of bricks, like very similar to the idea that landed on me about the addiction writing. I said, I'm going to make it like a cassette mixtape. It's going to have two sides, which would help me incorporate the blackout poetry on the B side. And I'm going to attach a song to every single one, whether it informed the piece in the first place, whether I was able to match it after the fact as a mix. But that's how that happened to me. It just came to me as a way to really meld in everything that people were already familiar with on Instagram as well. So it made sense that I was attaching songs.
Yeah, and I love the visual of it. So for just to kind of give a sense, like the book is it looks like a tape, like back in the
Mhm.
day, the tapes that we used to dub or like use, and I that brought me back to when I was younger, and I just loved it. It was so creative. And not only do I love, the poetry aspect of it, but I love art. And I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of different art festivals, but for a very long time, every year, probably for 4 or 5 years, I was going to Art Basel. It just happened to fall on my birthday weekend in December. I go to and all of that kind of art I was so influenced by. My mom loved art too. And so it was just something that I just resonated with, and how you interfaced it. It was like literally executed so beautifully.
Thank
So,
you.
and I'm gonna, of course, and I'm gonna share all of that because I think it's like, I don't know, I've never seen something like that. They were displayed in our library,
Mhm.
and it was just so eye catching. So I really loved it. But I want to talk a little bit about like how how do you create the safe space for you? Like, what do you do sometimes to be able to write? Because this is like, sometimes this is really intense, things that you're writing. And I don't know if it's always specific to how you're feeling, or it's just something that, again, an idea that's coming to you. But what do you do to also offset a lot of the intensity of the material that you're creating?
I don't. I write through it. So,
Okay.
yeah, there's no safe space for me when I'm writing. When I'm writing, poetry specifically, because I do write professionally in many different ways. So, like, when if we're talking about poetry, I'm writing to get through something usually, or I'm writing because I do get an idea that lands in my head, but most times I'm writing through it and I'm writing with urgency. Um, and that's usually how I approach poetry, at least the first draft. Now, once the drafts get going, if I don't publish that first draft, which does happen sometimes, I do sometimes publish the first draft. Um, then there's more, I guess, structure around my process. When you're creating anything that you might be creating, like, do you need to be in a bubble of some sort where you feel safe and open to creating?
No, I feel, it's interesting that you asked me that, because as I'm going through what I do, it's probably similar to you. It just comes to me. I'm always writing. Like, I'm always writing ideas down. I have a million ideas. I write them down, so I don't forget them. But whatever comes to me in that moment, I write it down and I run with it. And if it feels really good, it feels really good. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I don't work with it. But generally speaking, I just love to just write all of my ideas down, and I flow with it. Like things like this, like I saw you and I said, this is right away. I was like, I need to have this conversation with you because of how you created and developed your process through your own experiences. And I just said, I want to create community. Speaking to so many different people. Now it's kind of morphing into, I'm getting a ton of people that are writing, that are talking about their own lives and their experiences, and that allows me to have conversation and build community. So essentially, I'm not only like sharing my conversations with people, but it's also helping me because I'm connecting with people that are doing the same things, but as you said, just differently.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And when you finally give into that and let go of, any criticism that might come or any fear of what will people think about me, about my art, about whatever, your correct people, the right people will find you. And I had that same experience. I know so many different artists, whether they're photographers, writers, painters, musicians, that have come into my life because I decided one day to share my art on the internet.
Yeah, and I feel like that, and that's kind of where I am right now. Like, I feel like I'm here, I'm doing it, and I'm slowly sharing my experiences. And what I'm noticing is that the more relatable you are, the more authentic you are, the more you're willing to just put yourself out there, but the real things and not sugarcoated. I think there's more traction there, because there's somebody out there, there's many people out there that may not really relate to the actual experience I went through, but the feelings attached to it, the loss, the grief, the helplessness,
Mhm.
the all of those emotions that are relatively the same, all those human experiences, I think, is kind of what I resonate with, and it really helps me, just like I'm sure it's helped you, as you're writing. But one thing I want to also ask is, I mean, it must feel so great to recognize that people do resonate with your work in a way where they're like, oh my God, you're actually writing and verbalizing the things that I'm feeling inside of me, and giving people like a voice or the ability to articulate the most hardest experiences in their life. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that, and has happened for you and the experiences you've had regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the honor of my life to be able to be one of the creators, writers that that have found, this person, say, and has helped them on their path, to healing, to bridging those gaps between what you want to say and how to say it. And I know my work has started a lot of conversations within like family units, friendships, relationships um that have helped kind of move the conversation along in a healthy way. But it's been the honor of my life. I get messages, I without identifying the person, I could even share one I got this morning that I haven't even had time to write back to yet. Um, so you're hearing it first. So I get these
Yeah.
type of messages I get every day in some iteration, and I respond to every single one because it means so much to me, and it takes only a few seconds out of my day to respond back. But someone said, "Hi, Alicia. I just wanted to say thank you. I recently picked up The Music Was Just Getting Good. It was lucky enough to find a signed copy at Barnes& and Noble. It felt like it was meant to find me. Track 31 and track 36 really stood out to me. They hit deeply. I've also read Sorry I Haven't Texted You Back, and some of those pages made me cry. I lost my grandfather in 2019, and just a few days ago, I lost my uncle. Your words hold space for grief in a way that feels both quiet and powerful, like someone sitting next to you in silence. I'm truly grateful for that. Thank you for putting your heart into what you write. It truly makes people feel less alone." Just and then it was signed by their name, but they also signed it, "Just another fan of your work." And I love that line, and I'm going to tell this person that in writing, but that my work made them feel comforted in the best way possible, I think, as sitting silent next to someone, because that's all people need. Like you said earlier, they don't know what to say. They don't know what to say, so they don't say anything. But they say it, sometimes not knowing what to say is telling you, well, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Like I in my times of hurt, no matter how catastrophic the hurt, I usually don't want to hear someone else's voice. I usually just want to feel presence next to me.
Yeah.
So knowing that my work did that for this person that just was meandering through a bookstore, I mean, talk about full circle, because that's literally why I started writing about addiction. And now my poetry is not all about addiction, but like I I was meandering around a bookstore pre-internet trying to find a book about what I was going through in that moment. So no, I was in the self-help section everywhere. So knowing that now my latest book that came out in 2024 found this person when they needed it. I mean, I could talk about this could be a whole other conversation, because I also have imposter syndrome. Like I'm like, there's so much better work out there, but I'm so happy that you feel that way about mine, you know?
Yeah, and I also think that that the imposter syndrome, just like a small piece to it, since you're bringing it up, what I'm learning, because I've been talking to a lot of people that um, have felt that way and are have success, major success. I don't think you can not have it. I think you have that's part of that creative like there's always going to obviously be somebody that maybe is better at the work that they're doing, but they're not your work. And I think that what I'm learning is that you just have to lean into it. And one person said to me that if you don't feel cringy or like this is, oh, I don't know if I can do this at least once or twice or multiple times, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. You have to
Mhm.
feel scared. You have to feel vulnerable. Those are all the things that go into taking those risks. And I'm recognizing that through all the conversations I'm having with people. So, yeah, so it's just leaning into that cringe as we're talking about. It's just, I hate to use that word, but that's really actually the perfect word for how I felt because at some points, I feel like, well, this podcast industry is so saturated. I'm competing with like celebrities, like who's going to want to hear what I have to say? And that's something that I think about all the time. And plus, you just have to you have to do the things that people don't want to do. And my feeling is when I'm doing this, when I'm talking to you and I'm speaking to all others that are on here, I feel so alive. I feel like this is exactly what I should be doing. And that's the focus. That's the energy that I'm chasing is that feeling. And that to me is when you're the closest to your truth in doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Amen. And This is not a paid ad, I swear, but like the creative act, Rick Rubin, he says the audience comes last. Like, don't worry about who's going to listen. If you're feeling if you're being propelled forward to create something, the audience comes last. And
Yeah.
I find from my own experience now, I could talk from my own experience, is every time I thought my career might be over, it wasn't. The audience was there. And I do think that telling people they made it, or having, or even if you're the creative that thinks, "Oh, I made it. I did it." That's when you're going to start falling down that ladder, because you're losing sight of why you started in the first place. And when I spoke at your high school, I made a point to say that my work evolves, sure, but the mission stays the same. I've never lost sight of who I am, why I'm doing this, and I'm sure my family and how I was brought up is a big part of that. But I always, I, I never lost sight of like who I am. Like, who I am talking to you is the same as who I am when I'm on TV, is the same as who I am when I'm hanging with my sister. I'm one version of myself, maybe a little more polished in some situations than not, but I'm always me. Um, I'm not like cosplaying myself.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you saying that because I feel the exact same way. Like there's no variations of my personality. Like what you see is what you get. I'm super I get excited really easily. I get very like caught up in moments of creativity. I get excited for other people. I want to like share what you have. That is me across the board. And I don't and again, a different version maybe if I'm at school speaking to teenagers versus adults. Yeah, a little bit different, but I agree with that, and I love the point, where you say the audience comes last, because I think that in some ways, we forget at times, like, why we're doing this. We're thinking about them first, but the reason why they're there is because of what we're doing first and why we're creating. It's that reason. It's not the other way around. But I love that you said that because that really did connect to me because I'm saying, yeah, focus on your art and it'll follow.
I think it will. I think that everyone could have an audience. Um, but that gets about when will you be ready? Like, if you're worried before you even launch something about, well, who's going to care about this, then your intentions are not correct. And they're and people are going to know that. Like, I could even see scrolling on social media, everyone's dying to go viral these days, and I could see when people are just not like disingenuine, like not authentic, and not and trying to almost mimic someone else that did it and it worked for them. And then they wonder, why did it work for them but not me? It's like, well, that's not your authentic self.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. And that's why I think being yourself and being relatable, there's tons of people that will be able to relate to you, but you have to show up as yourself. Because I think that's also sometimes when you don't, then sometimes for some people, that imposter syndrome in some ways does come in because we know that we're not being ourselves and the world doesn't really know who we are. So now it gets very conflicted when we're not ourselves. Well, the world is not loving who we really are. They're loving whatever it is that we're bringing that is not authentic.
Yeah, tale
So
as
yeah,
old, tale as old as time. Especially once people start hitting success marks and they're kind of pushed in certain directions that might work for them but doesn't feel right. um but I also understand, like, it's very hard to turn down certain offers and opportunities, but I've been lucky where I think I've been able to say no a lot, especially early on when other people were telling me to say yes. A quick example of that is that, God, I think I was only writing about addiction for like 2 years, maybe less. So I was in the thick of it, of right, being the poster child at the time for families impacted by addiction. And I was approached by a very popular vodka brand to collab with them. And at the time, it was a lot of money, like money I wasn't used to seeing. And I just knew in my heart I couldn't say yes. Because it just did not align with what I was writing about, what I was almost preaching about at that time. Um, because of substance abuse and how alcohol is just poison in my mind. So I turned it down even back then. Like now I wouldn't think twice about turning it down, but 25-year-old Alicia looked at that number and was like, "Oh, I really wish I should take it. I should take it." And people were in my ear saying like, "Obviously take it. You need to pay your bills," things like that. But at the end of the day I said no, and I'm so happy I said no because at the time I don't know how that would have been received by the audience I was building.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I have to say, I'm at the very, very early stages, but I also came to, like, an experience like that where I was, asked to do something, and I think what they were sharing with the world was not what I wanted to be involved in or what I wanted to be a part of. And so, it gets hard because when you're in the beginning of things, you want to be able to connect and build a
Yeah.
platform. But as you said, you have to be careful with what you say yes to in the beginning because that could really take you off course of where you are meant to go and what you want to do. So, I wasn't even offered any, I'm not even being offered any money, but, just to get my name out there, I don't think that's worth it. I just rather just keep doing what I'm doing, and when you're feeling good about what you're doing, that to me, I know that that's exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I always
Trust your instincts.
appreciate. No, 100%, and I really appreciate just all of this. Is there anything, so I wanna ask one more question because I have one more question as it also can be helpful for even just kind of what I'm doing. How do you balance, um, your privacy versus being vulnerable with your audience? Like, is there any balance to that? Is there anything that you do where you kinda try to have a little bit of a safeguard when it comes to privacy and vulnerability?
Yeah, I mean, I will say publicly, most the people know less about me publicly than they realize. I am a very private person. Doesn't mean I'm keeping secrets or hiding or, who they think I am, I am. But I want to preface this discussion with the fact that I was coming up in my career at a very different time in social media where I don't think I would have been able to get away with it now. Like if I was just starting, I think I would have had to be that overshare mentality, all cards on the table. Like there even to this day, people I don't want to jinx it either because I'm happy with how it's been, but like people care more about my work output than my actual personal life. And I just feel like if I came up any other time, I would have had to be a complete open book. My family would have had to be side characters in my TikToks and I am a consumer of TikTok. I love watching TikTok, but every time I watch it, I know like I watch it like it's TV. I could not do that. I was only willing to share what I was willing to share in those moments. Um, so my work is ahead of me. Some people read my work and don't even know what I look like, and that's a writer's dream. I wasn't trying to be so front facing. So I think the time I came up matters, but it's hard to talk about privacy and how I would manage it in today's social media climate because I don't think I
For
would be
sure.
able to.
No, it's definitely not easy because, in some regards, people wanna know more than just what you're bringing to your art. They wanna know the whole person, and that could be difficult, like, what parts do you share? What parts don't you share? I also notice when I'm sharing more of myself in some regards, that gains a little bit more traction, and people want to be more involved in understanding me when they see those parts, which is also a good thing because, I want to be able to share with the world, like, there are really great things going on behind the scenes, despite all the things that I've experienced and all the things that I'm showing you. But it's really hard to kind of maintain that balance. And also, when you start doing it, how much of it do you do? What's enough? What's not enough? So that's a really, really difficult game in this climate for
Y-
sure. And I
Yeah,
wish this been years ago, but you know what? It is what it is. We're here and it's just, I guess it's, what's meant to be is meant to be. But I appreciate that because I notice you have a very specific way of how you are public facing. But you're able to really share all this vulnerability even though you're public facing, which like really noticed about you, because what you're sharing is some really, really vulnerable raw things. And to then be as private as you are, that's kind of like a talent. I'm impressed.
Thank you. You're actually the second person that I've had like a podcast chat with this year that brought that up. Um,
Yeah.
but I do, that's why I wanted to preface it this time, because I don't think I gave it much thought the first time that another person asked me. It was like I think I was an agent of my time, and
Yeah.
I was able to curate my actual self, that and share what I wanted to share, and not share what I didn't want to share without feeling any type of pressure. I also will say it's because I'm okay with my amount of success. I make a living as a writer. That's all I've wanted to do. So if I were to share more, if I were to post every day, it probably, the algorithm would start favoring me and start showing my books more, and maybe I'd get more readers. But I weigh the cost of that. And I'm okay managing what I have now. Like I don't need any more success. I
I mean, I honestly truly love that, because I think that in our time it's more, more, more. I want more, I want more. There's no I've never, honestly, I've not heard anybody say I'm good with this. I'm content, I'm satisfied, I'm in a great place, or I love where I am. And I know the public people don't have that cost analysis of what that does anymore in life. Like everybody just wants to just have more. And I don't know, it's so refreshing, because I almost feel that way as well. Like I have my career, like I love what I do. I don't feel like I'm ever working, but I also did this for other reasons. I did this because it did give me a voice to connect and really work through my grief, but it also is passion. It infused my career. It made me feel creative. I got to connect with people that I wouldn't connect with. And that to me is great. And if something happens, great. If not, I'm still going to do this.
yeah, and well, that's because you didn't lose sight of the mission. And that's it,
No, I did.
it's all it's all connected. But like, yeah, I mean, I wanted to make a living writing. That's what I'm doing. So any that is why I'm content. I and I know you see it play out every day, what the actual cost is of overexposure and what that can mean. And I have no interest in that. And it's just as simple as that. And again, maybe it's because I'm older now, and I'm fortunate that I've been able to do everything I want to do. But I didn't even know if I had another book in me, and I was okay with that. I decided to end the mixtape series. I told my publisher I'm done at 3. I want it to be a trilogy, and that's that. Like I could have been pushing those out forever because they sell. Um, but all that to say, the cost of any type of overexposure, I've seen too much where I'm good where I'm at.
Love that. I think it's so refreshing. And I love that, I'm able to have this conversation with you, because I think that not a lot of people feel like that. Not a lot of people feel like that, especially, sometimes people coming from, lives of scarcity or things like that, where they feel like it's never enough. And then they reach these heights and they think that, like, it's always like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Instead of really being present in the moment and really understanding like what got you here. It's because
Yeah.
you were focusing, as you said, on the mission.
Yeah, and I do think depending on what industry you're in, it matters. It would frame your thinking a bit differently. Like I wanted to be a writer. I never thought my face would be out there. And when I was going to school to be a writer, to be a journalist, I was thinking print journalism, getting a byline. I was never thinking that I would be part of the brand to sell my books or anything like that. So a writer's dream in my mind is just to write our books and put them out and not have to show our face again for another couple years. So I think that's I wanted to say that too, because if I'm a musician, if I'm a singer, I understand having to put your face out there. Yeah, but I'm a writer. I just want to read my books.
Read the books and just, send me a DM and just like, but I love that you still connect with your audience,
Have
which I
to.
think is really important. You have
Have
to.
to.
And I think that it's like, even though, sometimes we don't have the time, those are the people that are supporting you, and I think it's important to support them back.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna do the opposite of what you were just talked about. I'm gonna ask you, we're gonna I'd love to kind of, pivot to a couple of fun sentence stems, especially with a writer like yours truly.
Oh
And
boy.
I wanted to, so the interest was is that I wanted to share it with you and they're fun, but I thought, no, I want to see how like fun and like creative this is. So it's all related to writing and things like that. And maybe with one or two sprinkled stems. Okay, so a book I wish I had written is
Oh wow. The Lovely Bones.
okay. Why is that?
That was my mom's an avid reader. She's read more books than I think most people on earth, honestly. And I would think I was 14 or 15 when that novel was released, and she read it first. She gave it to me to read, and that was the first concrete moment I remember being taken away by a book and saying, "I want to write a book."
Wow. Okay. My go-to comfort read when the world gets a little too loud is
Go Alice in Wonderland. I collect Alice in Wonderland books.
so it's so interesting. And I'm gonna share something. When I was 6th grade, I remember every month I would go to the bookstore with my dad and he would buy me 4 books. And like that would take me to, I don't know, like a month, like I don't know, 2 months. But I became like obsessed with sci-fi books and I would stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning reading these books and I would be scared and I couldn't get to sleep. Actually, the author was Christopher Pike. It was like a
Mm.
very old author. And my friends and I would sit up. I was like 6th grade, 7th grade, and I bought all the books and I was like constant. And then it went to different things. But I mean, being immersed in those experiences were it was like you were not living your life. And I just loved feeling like my imagination take over me when I was reading those sci-fi books, which was actually kind of funny. Nobody knows about. Okay. Yeah, they're gonna be like, "Are you serious?" The weirdest thing in my writing space right now is what? Like, what is the weirdest thing?
That I don't have a writing space.
So when you're writing, what is like okay. So can we get pass on that one because I have two more for you.
No, I think that's the answer. I think the strangest thing as a writer is that I don't have a dedicated writing space.
That's so interesting. So you just will go wherever it is that you go and you just write.
Yeah, as long as I have
That's so
Wi-Fi and my laptop and a notebook or anything, I could do anything.
okay. Here's what if my writing life were a reality TV show, what would you call it?
A reflection on disappearance.
Interesting. Okay, and the last one. If I could have coffee with any literary character, who would it be?
A character?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or or character or an author, whatever comes to you first.
No, characters the cooler question. I'm gonna stick with the adventures in Alice, in Wonderland, and I'm gonna say like maybe like tea with a Mad Hatter or something. Like very,
That's
very
very
nonsensical.
yeah, that's awesome. So, oh my God. So thank you for just being a fun sport. I just thought that that was so fun. And,
It was.
I was like, let's see what Miss Alicia Cook had to say. So listen, is there anything that you have next? Like what's next in your writing journey and what are you doing now?
Oh, wow. So I have been writing again. I want to try to get a chat book published, which is, if for anyone not familiar with the chat book, it's not a full length poetry book. It could be a couple dozen pages. I could obviously self publish it, but I'm trying to go the submission route and try to get an independent press to publish it. A lot of rejection's been involved the last couple months, last year for it, but I kinda get a rush from just knowing that I'm trying, and knowing that rejection is still something that happens to me quite a bit at this stage of my career, keeps me humble. Um, so that's what I'm hoping to get a chat book out to my readers, but I am trying to get it published through a press, so, there's been some hurdles and roadblocks, but I believe it'll happen, and I just a poem that's no one has seen called "The Squirrel Made His Way," um, just won a poetry prize. So
Wow.
I've been excited to share that in the last couple weeks. So it won the 2026 Central Avenue Poetry Prize. And I'm excited for people to finally be able to read it in probably a year's time.
So, and why does it take so long from the time, from now until then? Why is that the way it is?
So with this particular poetry prize, it involves getting a book published. So an
Oh,
anthology. So my winning poem, the runners up, the honorable mentions, the short list, it'll be a book. So it takes about 9 months to a year for a book to come out traditionally. And I want to wait. I don't
wow.
want to share the poem because I want people to obviously check out the book and check out all the writers. Like they're going to be anthologies are amazing because you could be introduced to so many writers you never heard of, never would think to check out.
That's awesome. You're just doing your thing. From the first time that I heard you speak, I think, in 2017 we said, "Oh my gosh," and now almost 10 years later, the evolution of where you are, is just, so impressive. And, even all the work that, I have, and after we close, I have, something that I'm going to screenshot and send to you is one of your writings. And it was one of my favorites. And I'm actually going to post it, when we publish this episode, because I just feel like, not only addiction and mental health and all the things that you're advocating and you're sharing with the world, you're also sharing like experiences that people have, day to day, experiences maybe relationship wise, losing people that are not necessarily a past, like really just truly everyday experiences. And I don't know, it really helps me, and I know it helps the rest of the world. So I really appreciate you coming in to just have a chat with me, and I was very excited about it. And I hope to have more collaborations as you continue your journey in
Yeah.
your writing.
Well, I'm so happy to join you today, and I this was a wonderful conversation. I knew it would be, but it was even better than I thought it would be. Um,
Oh, good.
yeah.
And I don't have to have imposter syndrome, right? No, I'm just kidding.
No, no, you're a great
No,
podcast host and conversationalist, and um, I I'm really happy and excited to see where you're going to be going with this too, because it's I've seen some really great content come out of this project of yours.
thank you. And again, women supporting women, and I just am such an advocate for just supporting other women and their art form, and that's really truly what I represent on my platforms as well. And I am just so excited, Alicia Cook, for you to come on to this unscripted conversation. And until next time, everybody, have a wonderful day.